When I played Red Dead Redemption 2 again earlier this year, I found myself constantly thinking about the character of Dutch van der Linde. While Micah Bell is often viewed as the game's main antagonist, Dutch's actions throughout the story proves that he did not need Micah's influence to betray his closest allies. From the beginning of the game, Dutch is portrayed as a charismatic and intelligent leader who cares deeply about his gang. However, as the story progresses, we see a darker side of him emerge. He becomes increasingly reckless and violent, and his decisions ultimately led to the downfall of the van der Linde gang. Looking back on the game, I can see that the dissolution of the van der Linde gang was one of the main overarching plots in Red Dead Redemption 2, and while Micah Bell played a role in the events that led to the gang's downfall, it was ultimately Dutch's decision that paved the way for their demise. That's why in this video, I want to talk about why I believe Dutch's betrayal still would have occurred even if Micah did not exist. If you enjoyed this video, simply just hit that subscribe button, and with that being said, let's get into it. Since the beginning of Red Dead Redemption 2, I couldn't help but notice hints throughout the game that suggested Dutch was not the reasonable and honourable leader that Arthur Morgan believed him to be. Even during the early stages of the game, when Javier mentions that Dutch had shot a girl during a robbery.
I mean, look, you're all free to think what you want to think, but for me, I still believe in him. Because, well, he did what he did. But he did it for love. For all of us. Yes, I feel bad. They didn't deserve that, but listen, I just think, and I've been thinking about this a lot, I just think Dutch loves us. And being loved, well, we're gonna be okay.
It was clear that Dutch had a violent side that Arthur didn't want to acknowledge. As the game progresses, Dutch's actions become more erratic and unpredictable, revealing a violent side that was once concealed. In one particularly memorable scene, the van der Linde gang was attempting to make a deal with the notorious gangster Angelo Bronte, who had abducted one of their own. Later on, however, Dutch violently assaults Bronte and then drowns him in the lake, killing him instantly. But the violence did not end there. In a moment that shocked even his most loyal followers behind him, Dutch took Bronte's body and threw it into the swamp, where it was devoured by an alligator.
Call them now! You call them! Jesus. Part of your philosophy books cover feeding a fella. Good goddamn alligator, Dutch.
This scene was a pivotal moment in the game and marked a really significant shift in the gang's fortunes as they moved closer to the inevitable downfall. And as for Arthur Morgan, this was a clear indication that Dutch was not the honourable leader that he once believed him to be. It became increasingly clear that Red Dead Redemption 2 was not a story of Dutch's glory, but rather an exploration of his faults and how they ultimately led to his downfall. Dutch's penchant for violence was just one of the many flaws that contributed to his ruin, and his inability to control his violent tendencies ultimately proved to be his undoing. It became clear to me that Dutch was just a leader that valued his own plans above all else. Despite the worsening circumstances around them, Dutch refused to deviate from his course of action and repeatedly insisted that everybody in the gang follow his orders. Dutch's inflexibility stemmed from his desire to be the one in charge and his willingness to relinquish control to anybody else. It was always clear that Dutch was a man who would never let go of his plan for the van der Linde gang, no matter what. Even though there were other potential leaders within the gang, Dutch refused to cede any control to them, and as far as he was concerned, Dutch's plan was the gang's destiny, and Dutch would never let go of it. But perhaps the most telling sign that Dutch would eventually turn on Arthur was something that he said early on in the game. In one of Dutch's early conversations with Arthur Morgan, he randomly mentioned that he expected Arthur to betray him someday.
I expect you'll betray me in the end, Arthur. You're the type.
That's so.
You tell me.
What is that even supposed to mean?
I'm sorry. I'm a little tired, I think.
That's a strange thing to say.
It was pretty surprising and disappointing to hear, especially considering that Arthur Morgan respected Dutch at that time. It revealed his paranoid nature and suggested that he was always willing to betray others before they could betray him. Dutch's true nature became increasingly clear as the game progressed. He was not the honourable leader that the gang believed him to be. In fact, he was the root of the gang's sad fate. So while Micah played a role in the gang's downfall, it was ultimately Dutch who betrayed Arthur and everybody else in the gang. The game secretly made it clear that he did not need Micah's influence to turn on Arthur. His paranoid nature and desire for control made it inevitable. In the end, the tragedy of Red Dead Redemption 2 is not just the dissolution of the Van der Linde gang, but the realization that the man that the gang thought was their fearless leader was just massively deeply flawed. Dutch's actions were the center of it all, and it's a perfect reminder that even those we look up to can have major faults that can lead to their own downfall.